So part of the things that I make sure I do every day is I always ask people, how can I be helpful? Which is different than how can I help you? It just feels different.
So Elmer, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's so cool. And the pile of donuts is great too.
Yes. Now this is the part where I get to start eating them.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start with
While
this
you're
crawler.
eating the donut, I'd like to ask you, out of everything you're involved in, what's really going on that's a lot of fun for you, that's exciting, that just you really are getting a kick out of right now?
At the exact moment that we're in, I'm really enjoying this crawler.
That's great.
As you know, and as you have mentioned, there's a lot of things that I get to be involved in. I think of the things that I do, and let me start with saying, last year was an interesting year for me. I had made a miscalculation, to be really frank, and I thought of myself as multiple people. So each one of my jobs was a different Elmer, to the degree that when I'd get a phone call, and I'd be invited to participate in something, and I'd say, well, which Elmer are you inviting? And it was as though, you know, the scale-up side, the economic development side, the teaching side, or the entrepreneur, the business owner side, it's as though these clones didn't ever meet and they couldn't be the same place at once. And the truth of it is, they are overwhelmingly the same person. And in fact, all the different things that I do are about the same thing, really. You know, I get to work a job where, you know, realistically, I'm paid to help businesses grow. And when they grow, they hire people. And when they hire people, it changes the lives of families. And people are excited about where they live. And when they're excited about when they live, they invest differently in their community. So that's a dotted line. So I get paid to help people feel differently about their community.
Wow.
At scale at Milwaukee. Well, I have a business, and my business is called Milwaukee Denim. And the origin of the business, and I won't tell you where the idea came from, but I will say that what appealed to me about it was that I had an opportunity as an outsider to build a brand that made incredible product that told the rest of the world how awesome and how wonderful and how interesting and character-filled and culture-filled Milwaukee is. And when we do that, people think differently about Milwaukee. And they decide to invest more in their community. So I have a business, which is about creating this dotted line to helping people feel differently and more excited about investing in their own community.
That's great.
So those are the same outcomes, even though the actions are wildly different. So the question was, where do I find the time? How do I do it all? 2018 specifically is about balance for me, and it's recognizing that everything I do serves everything else I do.
Great.
And so I find the time because that's all we have.
That's great. Wow, that was an ideal answer. You're speaking to a coach here.
I thought you would like that.
One of the things I help clients do is be that same person, show up as the best you that you can be. So it's cool hearing about your journey.
Well, I'm working on it.
That's
I
great.
mean, I think being my best self is a function of constantly questioning, constantly asking myself and others, how can I be more impactful? And I've been really meditating on feedback loops.
Excellent.
Right?
I was just thinking of that when you said that.
Yeah, I need to understand very quickly how my actions actually impact what I'm doing. And so in the spaces where we're working at such a scale that the outcome metrics are glacial, that's hard for me. So I have to look for little miniature ways.
Well, and you have so many stakeholders.
I do. When I get really excited, that's a challenge because I want to go, 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 go.
Right.
And I have to make sure that, and part of my go is rah-rah. And I have to sometimes slow down and say, okay, stakeholders, you're in the room because you believe, but that's not enough. I need you to believe and help carry, and carry the weight of the work, but also carry the message.
Interesting.
And so,
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And that mirrors the corporate clients I have too, because so many times the leader thinks they have to carry the weight, and one of the big things I coach leaders on is shifting the ownership. Shift the ownership. Employees want to own. They want
Absolutely.
to be the thinkers too. The leader doesn't have to figure everything out. So I didn't know there was such a parallel given the work you do.
you know, I'm not surprised at all that there's a parallel. I think, you know, the work you do as a coach is in some ways like being an executive to an unformed corporation, right? So, and I really love the word corporation, and it really talks about the body. So you get to be at the head to this undefined body, and it's like I can be a finger and not necessarily know who the head is, but I still experience what the leadership consequences are, and that's really
Wow.
wonderful.
Whoa, we're gonna have to meet later. I need to hear more about that.
Yeah, we can go deeper on that one.
So another thing that I work on with clients is daily rituals. And a lot of it's around self-renewal, resiliency. Do you have any daily rituals that keep you
Such
going?
a good question. You know, I sometimes struggle with having sufficient discipline to do the same thing every day at the same time. I think there's now some things that I've built into my body so well that I almost don't even think about them. So first, it occurred to me a couple years ago that I tend to adopt ideas for a year at a time, right? So when I said my word for the year is balance, well, you know, last year I decided I was going to only wear blue, right?
I love that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, everything I buy is gonna be blue.
Steve Jobs.
And it was a little bit Steve Jobs, but it was also, you know, I have a denim business, and there was just like I love blue, right? So part of the things that I make sure I do every day is I'm always asking, isn't that fun? I have some words that I use. For instance, I always ask people, how can I be helpful? Which is different than how can I help you? It just feels different. I always look for an example of when someone says something that gives me pause, right? So my day isn't complete until someone's said something in front of me or to me that, wow, okay, I hadn't thought of that. And so I ask a lot of questions. I think smiling is exceedingly important to me, both my own smiling and kind of being with people and smiling. I used to be a dancer. I don't know if you know that about me.
Oh, that's so cool.
And touch is very important, so the body is very important to me.
Yeah.
And so I have, you know, I make sure that I have some touch every day.
You do.
And I'm married, so that makes it a little bit easier. But I try to make sure, you know, whether it's a handshake or a hug, that I just have a moment of kind of connecting with another person.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
One last question,
Sure.
and thanks again for being here. This has been really great. The meaning of life. When you think about the meaning of life for you, what are 3 words that might come to mind?
So for the literary folks, I'd say 42. The meaning of life. It's impossible, or it's not impossible. It's difficult to communicate something that doesn't feel sort of well-worn. Right? But I think some things that are cliches are just accurate.
That's right.
And so for me, how to call it 3 words, I'll have to figure out.
Or
But
phrases.
For me, what matters
matters
is,
most.
and I ask people this, what happened because you were here?
Oh, that's great.
So that's what I think about.
That's great.
You know, I think about, I had a great moment where I realized that I want to be able to tell my story in names, right? That's what matters. I want to be able to you know, I believe I have a formula actually that will come out in my book one day, which is the value of a person is the sum total of impact they had on individuals. And it could be positive or negative, big or small. So the meaning of life is
the question, what happened because you were here?
what happened because you were here.
Thank you, Elmer.
Thank you,
Thank
Therese.
you. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.